Why does this moment matter? Well, the reason that I went back to the Luddite example 200 years ago is because long before ChatGPT, long before DALL-E, the writing was on the wall for the way that technology was going to be used to disrupt structures of work, to degrade workers. You only had to look at Uber and Lyft, as Molly also pointed out, to what they were doing to not just the taxi industry, but to delivery workers, to all kinds of precarious workers. Amazon, which was unleashing this brand new sort of technologically mediated regime where people at their warehouse were being forced to work like robots to keep pace with robots. So it wasn't ChatGPT that inspired me to sort of to focus on the Luddite example, but it did rather quickly become maybe the most pronounced and most powerful example. Because what happened with the Luddites is after a decade of peaceably organizing, going to the government and saying, hey, look, these conditions are intolerable. We have these factory owners who they're not just changing the way that we work, they are undermining us, they're driving down wages, they're leaving us with a choice either to join the factory at a pittance and produce subpar work using these machines. Very important, the machinery could not produce, just as it cannot today with creative works, it could not produce work that was nearly on par with what was being produced by the skilled artisans, the skilled craftsmen. It was an inferior, mass-produced alternative. And so they had a choice: abandon what was called the domestic system or the cottage industry. That's where that term comes from. The proto-Luddites, the pre-Luddites were part of the cottage industry, and get on board with this factory system. They organized, they said, at least give us a minimum wage so we can feed our families, because by the end of that decade, by 1810 or so, you literally have cloth workers who can no longer afford to feed their families. They're starving. They protest and they appeal to the industrialists, the tech titans of their day. They hear nothing. They get nothing. And finally, when there's a big economic downturn and their quality of life collapses further, and then the entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial elite move in with even more machines to try to automate even further, they've got their backs against the wall, and they finally rise up, and in 1811 they become the Luddites. And they do what they're famous for, which is, yes, taking a hammer and smashing the machines that are being used to take their jobs. And once again, let me underline, and this is something that Corey has pointed out too, if those very same industrialists had come along with this technology and said, you guys have been doing this for 200 years, let's work together so we can make all of our lives better. You can figure out how to get the quality up. We can work. We can maybe participate in a technological revolution together. Man, can you imagine how different it would be today? Instead, they said, no, we are going to take this technology. We're going to sit at the top of these new pyramids that we're erecting. We're going to siphon all the profits up to the top, and we're going to pay our workers even less. Today, generative AI threatens no less than every mode of creative labor that you can imagine. And the threat is real. It is real. I want to make sure, as Molly did a great job of demonstrating, that we're talking about this not in the abstract terms, but as something that is happening now. So, as a journalist today, just about every week I talk with a new artist, illustrator, copywriter, even coder, somebody who is seeing what's happening right now. And that is, they're losing work as an illustrator to corporate clients that can now use Midjourney. They are seeing their colleagues being fired in game development because the designers can now use DALL-E. And this is explicitly happening. Some of these firings that are being sort of obscured away as to along with greater trends in the tech industry are due to automation. It's happening right now. It is degrading conditions, degrading the quality of life. And fortunately, there are people like Molly who are resisting.